Much better. Much better. Mariners win 9-0. They improved to 45-34 on the season, and they even the series with the Marlins at a game apiece. Go over the scoring plays. There's a lot, and for once, there's a lot, and they're all Seattle Mariners. They get 2 in the first, a J.P. Crawford. Well, it wasn't a wild pitch from J.P. Crawford, but J.P. Crawford scores on a wild pitch from Sean Anderson, who is just awful. 1-0, and then Cal Raleigh hits a sacrifice fly to score Josh Rojas 2-0. In the fourth, Dominic Canzone, who had a big old day today, singled to center to score Luke Raley. Ryan Bliss, who had a big old day today, singles to center to score Dominic Canzone. That's 4-0. And then J.P. Crawford grounds into a fielder's choice. An error allows Ryan Bliss to score 6-0 because somebody else scored on that play too. Dylan Moore, who had a pretty good game too. 6-0 at the end of 4. Fifth inning, Dominic Canzone clobbers a homer. They say it went 415 feet. I think it went substantially further than that. 7-0 at the end of 5. Dylan Moore doubles home Canzone in the 8th. That makes it 8-0. And then Ryan Bliss doubles to center to score Dylan Moore. 9-0. Mariners win. Somebody's messaging me. Be right back. Not to brag or anything, but the person who just messaged me was Keith Law, because we were talking about Ryan Bliss. And we were actually talking about the 2014 MLB draft too, which is wild, wild, wild stuff. Yeah, I'm friends with Keith Law. I'm very, very cool. Negatives from this game, there's only 2. I am worried about J.P. Crawford. He goes 1 for 5 with an RBI today, which, okay. It's 3 more strikeouts, and we'll just do this in lifetime. Let's take a look at what J.P. Crawford has done in the month of June, which is not a small sample anymore. Coming into today, 74 at-bats, 189, 288, 286, 392. The 392 is not so bad. The 189 and the 286 for your leadoff hitter, not so great. And if you take away that big game he had against Cleveland on Tuesday, really not so great. I thought he was starting to pick things up towards the earlier portion of the month. Not really. And it's concerning because J.P. Crawford has 1 year of being a really good offensive player. 1. They need him to get going. They desperately need him to get going. I'm not going to go too crazy complaining about stuff on a day they win 9-0, but 2 guys had really bad days today. J.P. Crawford and Mitch Garver was atrocious. He also was a guy that I thought was figuring some stuff out. Too many games like this. Luke Raley only went 1 for 5, but he had a triple. And as I made the comparison on Twitter, he runs like Phoebe Buffet, and that is the highest compliment that I can give someone. He runs like he's mad at the ground. He runs so hard and looks like he's having a combination of all the fun in the world and absolutely no fun at all. It's almost Rob Gronkowski-like. And then, of course, Ryan Divish stole my joke and posted the GIF. He's a thief. Ryan Divish is a thief. Yep, I know Ryan Divish and I know Keith Law. I have no other friends. I'm not even sure Ryan would call me a friend, if we're being completely honest with you. That's it for the negatives. Let's talk about the positives, starting with Simply Seattle, the very best in Seattle sports gear. Use code MOLLYWOP15 to save 15% off your order. That's MOLLYWHOP15. Great stuff for the Mariners, Kraken, Seahawks, Storm. You can find it all. Link in the description to take you to the website, and also just copy and paste that code. But once again, that code is MOLLYWHOP15. I'm going to end with Gilbert because I could probably talk about him for 45 minutes. But there were some really good offensive games today. Oh, the other thing I was going to mention is that Josh Rojas did make a couple of errors today. I'm definitely not going to go too crazy there. He's statistically and by eye test been among the best defensive third basemen in baseball. So, and a couple of hits for him today. France gets on a couple of times. Big Dumper gets a hit and an RBI. I'm still a little concerned. He missed a couple of meatballs, took him to the warning track, but positives. The real positives here, the bottom of your lineup was fan-flippin-tastic. Dom Canzone had arguably his best game as a Seattle Mariner. Not the biggest hit, because, that game-tying homer against Baltimore, that's got to be there. But a 4-for-5 day, he scores 3 runs, a couple of RBI. It's a smaller sample because he just hasn't played as much because of his injury. But 234, 303, 467 ain't that bad. Now, I still have concerns defensively with Dominic Canzone. I don't think he's going to ever hit left-handed pitching. But there are just enough flashes, and man, he just absolutely scorched that baseball. Scorched it into that upper deck off, I believe that was JT Chagua. Such a fun name to say. Fantastic game from him. You see the flashes. You see why Seattle really likes this guy. Would I be willing to trade him if teams have interest? And teams would have interest for sure. Yes, 100%. Would I consider? Well, we'll talk about him in a second. The Mariners are going to have to make an interesting decision here coming up. Nice game from Dylan Moore. June has been terrible for him, but their last week has been much better. Much better. Just put the ball in play, Dylan. Good things happen. And look, he has become a guy who hitting for average is basically going to be impossible because he sells out for pop. That's probably more than any Mariner out there. Cal Raleigh, maybe. But that's his game now. Draw walks, hit the ball over the fence, steal some bases when you draw the walks, fill in a bunch of spots, right? A really nice game from him. And what a couple of, and honestly, since he's been up, how can you not be impressed by Ryan Bliss? 3 more hits today, scores a run, picks up a couple of RBIs, doubles twice, 3 doubles on the season now. I think a lot of people look at Ryan Bliss and they look at a short king and they think, well, he just must be the guy who slashes the baseball, right? He must play the game similar to a David Eckstein. No, that's not Ryan Bliss. In part because Seattle's taken a lot of that away from him. They've really had him work on the pop, and it's worked so far. His at-bats are so good. Name the last terrible Ryan Bliss at-bat. I don't think you can do it. Maybe you can, and I'm just so smitten with the guy that I'm forgetting about it. I don't know how you can't be impressed by what Ryan Bliss has done. And here's the interesting thing, and I was thinking about saving it for the end of the video, but Jorge Polanco is going to be back probably Monday or Tuesday. Jorge Polanco has a huge track record of success and hasn't been great for the Seattle Mariners. No doubt about it. And Ryan Bliss is a better defensive player. But you're kidding yourself if you think that Jorge Polanco is coming up here to play a utility role. Right? Jorge Polanco is here to play. What do you do with Ryan Bliss? Because he certainly earned a chance to play. Having said that, this is a 24-year-old, right? 2-4. There is still a lot of long-term potential in Ryan Bliss that can be, it's harder to unlock if he's not playing every day. Is he going to play every day for the Seattle Mariners with Jorge Polanco up? Kind of tough to see, right? But at the same time, I just love what he brings to the Mariners so much that I'd have a tough time sending him down. So what I would probably do is I would send down Tyler Locklear, who isn't playing right now. So that's pretty easy, right? But how do you get Bliss's bat in the lineup? Because you're not going to put him in at shortstop over J.P. Crawford right now. You could have Polanco maybe play some third base. Maybe. You could have Polanco get some at-bats at DH and have Mitch Garver sit, I guess. It's a tough decision. It's a tough decision, whether you think it's a tough one or not. I'm here to tell you, it's a tough decision because you have to not only think about, okay, and I know this is frustrating for people, and I get it. You should focus more on 2024 than the long term, right? But you can't just completely ignore 2025 and beyond either. That's how teams get into trouble. You got to think about the long term with Bliss as well, and whether or not it makes sense for him to be up with the Mariners and not playing. Tough one. Be a much easier decision, I think, if Bliss was 27 or 20. But at 24, it's a tough one, in my humble estimation. You may disagree. Pitching. Good job by Eduard Bizardo. Let's talk about him for 45. No, I'm kidding. But nice to see some success, even in, to call it a low leverage situation seems like an insult to low leverage situations. But stuff look good. Get the couple of strikeouts. Logan redacted Walter Gilbert. These last two starts for Gilbert, and look, he's been fantastic for the overwhelming majority of the year. As long as he keeps the ball in the park, Logan Gilbert has been phenomenal. Solo homers have really been the issue with Gilbert for the earned runs he gives up. I don't have the stats in front of me. It seems like about 75% of the runs are solo homers, in part because he hasn't given up a whole lot of runs. His splitter the last two games has been an 80 grade pitch. And for those of you who don't know what that is, they use a 20/80 scale. That should tell you that 80 is good. The command has been so good. You know Gilbert is always going to battle. But when he's battling with this kind of secondary stuff, man, oh man, what a fantastic couple of games this has been from Gilbert. And they've needed him. They've needed him because, that start against Texas, phenomenal. 8 innings of shutout baseball. Big reason why they sweep that series, and that sweep looks awfully big right now. And today, he was so good that you have a chance to win this series. And, let's be honest here. If Logan Gilbert was crummy, they probably still win this game. Sean Anderson stinks. And I suppose that's one negative we could talk about. That, okay, you did it against Sean Anderson in the Marlins bullpen. But you didn't do it on Friday, so obviously it's not a lock. Logan Gilbert. And this is where things get real interesting too, because look, I think the lead now is 7. The Orioles have not helped the Seattle Mariners at all, losing to the first 2 games of that series against the Astros, but still a pretty big lead. Still overwhelming control of the division. Got to play better to keep it than they did against Cleveland and that first game against Miami, but still that overwhelming lead. So you can still kind of think ahead, or at least I will. And let's say it's Minnesota against Seattle, which is, I believe, what it would be right now. Minnesota against Seattle for the right to advance to the ALDS. If you can line up your rotation right now, tell me why Logan Gilbert isn't starting the first game. And keep in mind, I'm talking right now. A lot can change. And this is not an insult to Luis Castillo and George Kirby one bit. It is just a compliment to how freaking good Logan Gilbert has been. If I was setting the rotation right now for the playoffs, it would be Gilbert, Castillo, Kirby. And I would feel pretty confident with that group, especially playing 3 games at home. I mean, he's just been phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. The splitter, oh, so good. And it has been the last 2 games. It's been good for most of the year, but especially the last 2 games. Ha. So you get the win. You play tomorrow, of course, Sunday. You always play Sunday. You stall until you remember the pitching matchup. Oh, yeah. Bryce Miller against Braxton Garrett. Braxton Garrett's not bad. Braxton Garrett is not bad. I mean, he has a 5.35 ERA, but I think that's a sample of like 7 starts, exactly 7 starts. And he's coming off a really good one against the Cardinals on Monday. So, tough one, but a game that you should win, a series that you should win. And it gives you a chance to even this series, or excuse me, even this road trip and end up with a winning record for the 9-game road trip. And I think that should have been the goal, 5-4. I know a lot of you said 6-3, and that's fine. I think 5-4 is more than okay, even acknowledging that they didn't play very well during that 3-game losing streak. So yeah, great win. Tell me what you think about the conundrums, and we'll be back tomorrow. I love this. I love this a lot, especially considering how terrible yesterday was. My dog just snored. It's fine.